Hello again. This is Chris. I have a very special guest with me today that is also a friend that's been a friend for a long time, Dr. Jonathan Campbell, John Campbell. And I'm very excited to have him share some of his knowledge and wisdom with us. You know, um, just to give you some background, John and I have known each other for, well, all of my life, I think, or all of we grew up. He was right next door to my family, and so a lot of interesting stories we could tell. But
Yeah, long time. I think we moved into that neighborhood when we were maybe 4 years old or something like that. So when I was four
right,
years old. So
exactly. I remember. Uh, I think it was your family that got a Commodore 64, and we came over and, or was it a computer before that? I think there was one before that. That
yeah, my,
was
my dad liked the gadgets. We had like the first Ataris with like the paddle, and you played Pong, and I don't know what it was before Commodore 64, but yeah, it was he had a lot of the gadgets. So I'm still kind of that way a little bit. So
Yeah, no, that's very cool. Yeah, I remember coming over and you had programmed like 30 lines and say, "Hey, look, I programmed this computer to tell time." Well, can't we look at the clock and do that? But
yeah.
it was something like that. But I sure appreciate your time, John, and all the wisdom that you bring. And I know hopefully the people listening kind of want to know what it's like to be a dentist, what
Yeah.
your life looks like every day, the patients that you treat, and maybe we could start with just really kind of an off the wall question. What is the strangest or the craziest case you've had with a patient?
Oh, it's usually behavior where people do something that you just never, would have expected, like, somebody that's at the dentist office and they want to, you know, bring their pants down so they can ask you about some, rash they have on their butt or something. They think you know it, and you're like, no, I haven't, wrong doctor. So that's usually the weirdest stuff. But I mean, I I see lots of people that um, have had lots of just really hard things in their lives, and it's resulted in terrible dental conditions, and so get a
That
chance to get to put them back together. So which
that's
is
what I kind. Oh,
so
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, that which is fun. I enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, there's I think most people are kind of have pretty good dental health, and their experience with the dentist is they need a few things done here and there, over the years, and not a whole lot. But there's a whole, group of people out there that have just awful situations where their disease is pretty debilitating, and those are fun. Not they're fun. They're interesting to take care of, and act like made fun is probably a good way to describe it. They're not fun for those people to deal with,
Yeah.
but as a someone that's trained to solve those problems, they're fun to tackle. So
Right. So I guess I imagine some of those clients would be meth kind of users that I've heard meth can really destroy your mouth. So, but
yeah, I think, yeah, definitely there's a huge group of people that suffer with drug addiction that one of the side effects of that is that they end up losing many of their teeth because the drugs themselves damage teeth. They're kind of lose sort of the interest in just taking care of themselves generally, and so their diet turns from things that are a little more healthy to they subsist on you know chips and soda pop, and then they don't clean their teeth, and they forget when the last time there was when they brushed, and then they're usually taking a drug that makes their mouth dry, and so they can go from having pretty decent teeth to needing all of their teeth removed in you know 4 or 5 years. So drugs can wreak havoc. So then just
oh,
this day and age, there's so many people that consume lots of soda pop and other things that aren't healthy. And so the youngest person I've helped with dentures was 15 years old. So Had to
Holy,
take out all of their teeth. There was no way to fix them, and put in plastic teeth, and he was excited because he was going to have them for homecoming. So, well, and he's going to look nice. Lifetime of dentures are terrible, but at least he didn't look like a monster. So,
that's terrible. What kind of condition would someone have? Do you have to have your teeth removed at 15? That's terrible.
yeah, just wasn't taught how to take care of them. Not a lot of good choices at home, and I'm sure there was some genetic aspect of it as well, but mostly just neglect by himself and his parents. So.
Wow. Well, so for some of the students or that may be in high school, still trying to figure out what it is they are looking to do with a career, with their life, maybe you could kind of go through what a day looks like for you and some of the stress that you have, and maybe some of the rewards too that you have.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a fairly, as a dentist, I think that's one of the reasons that people, as they're considering health professions, maybe choose dentistry versus another health profession, is my schedule is usually pretty set where I'm, go in and see patients at the same time every day, and then I'm usually done about the same time every day. For me, that's 8 to 5, and I do that Monday through Thursday, and then Fridays I see patients 8 to 5 one week, and then the next week I don't see patients. So I think that's fairly common for most dentists to have one day during the week where they don't see patients. Just when you're seeing patients, there's not a lot of time to do other things. I think there are other, occupations where you kind of have time to run errands and um, address things that that are kind of more personal in nature, that you can kind of take care of those during the day. As a dentist, if you're when you're in somebody's mouth and starting a project, you kind of have to finish the project. You can't set it aside and say, I'll come back to this later. Which can sometimes be a stressful thing, that you once you start a procedure, you can't, if you're a carpenter or making furniture, you could say, well, I've got something else that's come up and I'll go finish this project later, or I'll come back on the job tomorrow and finish it. But when you're working on a person, once you start the job, you've kind of got to finish it. And as long if the job's going as you expect it to go, then that's fine. But if the job, is more challenging than you expected, or maybe the person is more difficult to work on just because they have a hard time being comfortable, then that can kind of wreak havoc. And I think that's one of the stressors of dentistry, and probably all of healthcare, is that you can't set the work aside and complete it later. You kind of, once you start it, you've got to finish it. And I think that's why when people, that's a common complaint that people have when they go visit a doctor or a dentist, like, gosh, why did I have to wait? Why did it take so long? And
Mhm.
that's kind of the issue, is that people are not machines, and so you never know kind of what you'll get into. So if you want to be seen at the dentist or doctor on time, have the first appointment of the day. So because
Yeah.
after the first appointment of the day, all bets are off in terms of how long it'll take. But and then I'm as a dentist, at least for right now, I own my own practice, so I have to figure out all the other stuff, like how to do payroll and how to advertise my practice and how to pay taxes and how to maintain the equipment in the office, and um, how to train people and things like that. And so I think that's changing in dentistry. I don't know that if in a decade, if you're a dentist, you'll might be somebody that just works for somebody else, and you go in and you just worry about teeth and you don't have to worry about running a business. That seems to be changing. But for me, that's a big part of what I do, is um, kind of running a small business as a little entrepreneur that has my own little, business I'm running. And I personally enjoy that. I know that for a lot of people, that's stressful to have to worry about that. But I think that's part of the reason why a lot of dentists take, people think, oh, you don't work Fridays. It's like, well, no, I don't see patients on Fridays, but I run my small business on Fridays. And sometimes, like other small business owners or people that, are in the mortgage industry or that sell insurance, they have days where it's like, okay, well, had a bunch of stuff I had to do in the morning, and then I could go golf in the afternoon or do something I
Hmm.
enjoyed doing because it just didn't occupy all the time. So I think that's why dentists do that. But it's, I think that the other, as far as scheduling goes, I don't have any trouble getting time off with enough notice. So if I want to take, you know, a week off, I can take a week off. But if I want to take a week off next week, I can't do it because I've got, about 40 patients every day that have already kind of scheduled their time around what, you know, their work and things like that. So, and then my schedule's full enough that if I were to cancel next week, I would upset probably 250 people who have appointments with me next week. And then I wouldn't be able to see them for probably 2 to 3 months in terms of, if they had kind of an urgent need or continuing care. And so I think that's an interesting thing with, I think there's a lot of jobs that people have where it's like, you know what, I just want, it's a good powder day. I want to go ski tomorrow and I'm going to take
Hmm.
the day off and I'll make it up on Saturday or by staying later. And dentistry, and I think healthcare doesn't really lend itself to that because once the appointments are sort of set, you've got to do it. So I think that's another interesting thing about dentistry that I don't think people think about. So, and then, financially, it's can be a very rewarding career. I don't think that's a reason to choose it. I think um, you would probably do better than many other professions just kind of right out of the gate if you chose dentistry or other healthcare professions. But I think if someone's like, I want to figure out the way I can make the most money as predictably as possible, I wouldn't say, oh, you should choose dentistry. I think you should, it's a great living, um, but I think if that's the main thing somebody's interested in, I think there's probably other ways to get there. So
Hmm. Yeah, very helpful. Interesting. So the benefits are you control your schedule, but not so much. You got to schedule it a week or two out. Otherwise, you're going to have some upset people.
yeah,
Um, the stresses, I can understand the stress part as far as starting something, and if you have to kind of finish it. About it's almost been 2 weeks ago. I think I told you I had my wisdom teeth taken out at
yeah,
52. And I was impressed. I think he did a pretty good job, I guess, because he sedated me. I was out.
yeah,
But the whole procedure just kind of reminds me, but that if I had had complications, if I had a dry socket or something, and I would be in a lot of pain, and I'd probably be calling a dentist, my dentist saying, "Hey, I've got a lot of pain. I've got problems. After all hours call. What can you do to help me?" Does that cause you stress, or does that cause you some sort of uh, joy or happiness to try to help people in that position?
yeah. I mean, I think if complications are frustrating because you realize the patient is probably frustrated. It's like, okay, they didn't expect to, have the discomfort they're having, or, maybe you do a procedure and the filling falls out, or, something just doesn't work out the way. And so I think those are complications are frustrating just because you're like, okay, that's not what anybody and any of us expected. We knew that that was the possibility. The other side of that, somebody's coming in and they've got a toothache and they're miserable and you can relieve that pain and suffering, and that's super rewarding. But if it's the result of something that I did and it's not turning out the way that you hope that it would, it can be um challenging for sure. So
Yeah.
but it's part of the deal. I mean, I think that's another thing about dentistry and healthcare is you're kind of always on call. You've always got, you have sort of an ethical obligation to your patients that if they have an urgent need, that you have to make yourself available to help solve that urgent need. And so, so I've got, a few thousand patients, and every week I have at least 2 or 3 phone calls that are outside of my normal office hours that I have to, kind of respond to. And it's usually something
Hmm.
I can handle over the phone, but it still pulls me away from whatever else I'm doing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, I imagine that would, you see a patient come in, a lot of pain, you can help with that pain. I imagine that that gives you some sense of satisfaction in helping people that
Oh
way.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think in dentistry for me, that's probably one of the most rewarding things. You have somebody that comes in and they're miserable and, you know, 15, 30 minutes later, they're leaving and they're totally comfortable and, life is better. And so yeah, to
Right.
be able to do that, to do, some of the other things that I do, like a filling or something, sometimes those are, they're not as much fun to do because you person comes in, they didn't really know they had a cavity that needed to be fixed. You fix the cavity and the person wasn't super excited about doing it. And when you're done, you just hope that it, you know, doesn't feel any different than it did before. And, you did that, you prevented them from having a toothache or having more expensive treatment. But in terms of the patient being like, oh, I'm so glad I had to have it filling done, nobody's super stoked about that ever. So,
Yeah, it's all preventative, I guess.
yeah,
Huh,
for sure.
interesting. So, did you always know you were going to be a dentist? I mean, did your dad have an influence? Just as a background, John's father was also a dentist for many years, and you got to work with him for about 10 years.
Yeah. I have a little picture of a drawing when I was in kindergarten where they're like, what do you want to be? And I'm like, I want to be a dentist. And, a little stick figure of me being a dentist. But when I was in high school, um, like graduating from high school, I started out pre-law. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I thought I wanted to do something with that. I didn't know exactly what. I thought I wanted to maybe work for an environmental protection agency or something like that. I was a tree hugger, I guess. But and then I served an LDS mission. As part of that, I knew that I wanted to do something in healthcare. I just felt like I wanted to have a job where a direct result of my job was helping other people. That there wasn't a disconnect there between me serving people and what I did. And so when I came home, I thought I wanted to do medicine, kind of looked at everything within medicine in terms of, you know, all the sort of side things. Still didn't really consider dentistry. I had a uncle that was a surgeon and he had kind of a negative view on things. And my dad needed some help during the summer, and I took the job mostly because I thought, oh, this will be great. I'll work for my dad. It'll be easy to get time off. He was paying me probably, more than he, needed to just to try to, do me a favor. But I was actually able to see some of the cool stuff that he did in terms of helping to get people out of pain and helping put somebody's smile back together where it was, a mess before, and some of the surgical procedures that I thought were fascinating. And I was like, hey, wait a sec, why am I not considering this? I know what my dad's life is like. He's got a great life. Um, and I know I admired my dad and being able to see kind of what he did because I was, as a kid growing up, I was like, well, he does a few fillings and, yeah, whatever. So I didn't really know what dentists did because my own personal experience, and he didn't come home and talk about it. And so, to so I didn't really know what he did. So from there I was like, hey, wait a sec, I should think about this. And kind of looked in it, and from there, kind of the rest is history. I got
Hmm.
into dental school and joined him after I got out of dental school, and we practiced together for a while. So,
Yeah, very cool. So, did you ever consider specializing in maybe prosthodontics or something, or you kind of wanted to be a general dentist when you went through
yeah,
school?
no, I did. I got married halfway through dental school. My wife, who was from Salt Lake City, that's where I live. She was anxious to get back home. I was kind of anxious to allow that to happen. Um, I had done well enough in school. I, probably could have specialized, but I think I was just kind of ready to be done. And I think the other thing was I didn't know exactly which specialty I would do. Um, and so I thought about it, but there were just some other things that made it so that it just wasn't a good fit for me at that time. So I've thought
Yeah.
about it. I've thought about it since, and yeah, maybe I would, enjoy specializing. But the nice thing about being a general dentist is you get to do a little bit of everything. And then if you have something that you might feel like you could do, but you don't, patient's kind of difficult, and you're kind of worried about, making them happy and having to work with them, that you can refer them out because you're just like, well, I could do this, but this person's kind of is a difficult person, and I don't have to do it. Or if it's a procedure, I'm like, yeah, that would stress me out. I don't have to feel like, okay, well, I'm the, last line of defense to get this done. I can just say, yeah, let's have somebody else, deal with the stress of that. So
Right.
it's nice that way. So you do, if someone's thinking about dentistry or medicine for that matter, the more specialized you are, the more income you'll make for sure. Just
Yeah.
simplifies things. So
So as far as the schooling, so if someone you were, talking to someone in high school and they had an interest in getting into dentistry, what would you recommend as far as maybe courses in high school or right out of high school and college? What's the path that they would need to take
yeah.
to yeah, get
I,
in
I
that
think,
career?
yeah, I mean, I think you've got to be a good student to get into dental school. It's competitive. I think there are some, most dental schools only accept 5 to like 15% of those that apply.
Huh.
You probably need to have about a, 3.5 grade point average, so somewhere between a B plus and an A minus grade point average. Probably closer to a 3.7 probably to get into dental school. So you've got to be a good student. You can't take, classes off and be like, oh, this is just history. I'm gonna get a C because it all counts towards that. So I think when you're in high school, I think if health sciences or dentistry is something you're interested in, you would do well to kind of get in the habit of getting good grades, just because
Mhm.
it's easier to continue to do that if you're sort of in the habit of that. I think that, most of the time, so if you're going to be a dentist, you graduate from high school, and then you get a bachelor's degree. So you go to college for usually 4 years to get a bachelor's degree, and then dental school is almost always 4 years. So you've got 8 years after high school to become a dentist. Your bachelor's degree is going to be, you have to take certain classes before you can go to dental school. Most of them are science classes, so like biology and chemistry and some physics. You do have to take some other classes, but and so I think if you're in high school, you would want to take, maybe a few extra science classes, especially life science classes. I think that would help prepare you. I think it would also help you to determine, like, am I interested in that kind of stuff? If you're,
Mhm.
take biology or other life science classes, and you're like, this is just totally boring to me, then you might, and that's kind of what the classes are all like, prior to dental school and leading up to it. They're all kind of geared towards that. Um, Nowadays, it seems like, I see in high school that there's, even cooler life science class where you can take anatomy or things like that, and that would be helpful. So I think you could get, if you're interested in dentistry, I think you could, probably easily find an opportunity to, um, shadow a dentist at work and kind of see what they do. I know a lot of like scouting groups and church groups have, sort of career nights where you go into a dental office and, play with the tools and maybe, drill on a tooth that's extracted and kind of see what some of those things are like. So see
Mm.
some, gross pictures of, things that were fixed, and see if that's something that, that is interesting to you. So
Yeah. Interesting. So what kind of attributes or character have you ever gone out and met someone and said, "Hey, they'd be a good dentist"? What kind of personality, I guess you have to, or aptitudes you have to.
yeah, I think you have to be pretty even keeled. Like, you can't, just in terms of like, if things aren't going well, that you can kind of just sort of cope with it and kind of go with the flow and figure it out without getting, frustrated by things. You have to enjoy working with people. I don't know that you necessarily have to be an extrovert, but you'd have to not mind, interacting with people. Because I mean, like I said, I have, you know, 40 to 60 encounters with people every single day where I have to say hi, how you doing, small talk a little bit, and then do things. You have to not mind doing that. Um, so I think you have to be kind of a people person. I think you have to enjoy solving problems. And then, dentistry is, it's all you're doing stuff with your hands. So if like if the last thing you ever wanted to do was like, doodle or make a model or, put together a, you know, piece of furniture or work on a tinker around on a car or a bike or something, if you just, hated doing stuff with your hands, then it's tricky because it's at the end of the day, I'm a manual laborer. I work with my hands all day long doing things. It's just really tiny projects all day long. So
Yeah. Huh, interesting. That's I wonder, is there certain words or vocabulary that you try not to say, like oops, or sorry about that, or that doesn't look right?
oh yeah, yeah, of course you realize that you're working on people that are in a very vulnerable situation. They're laying on their back, some it's not comfortable. Most of us are kind of, it's, I think, an evolutionary thing that, you protect your head and neck because, if your predator's coming at you, it's like go for the jugular. So you don't, so if you got somebody working right by your jugular, you're going to be you know, your defense mechanisms are kind of up. So yeah, so you have to be
Yeah.
careful about what you say and try to
Well,
talk to patients in a way that they feel like everything's going well. And so even when an oops does happen, you don't necessarily say that. So you're honest with
yeah.
people. If you have something that doesn't turn out right, or you have a procedural error, then you say, okay, well, this happened, and sorry, I didn't intend to. It should be okay. We've kind of done what we can to remedy it, but just so you're aware that happened. So
Huh, interesting. You've had those kind of conversations with people, I guess. Huh? Like,
that's why they call it practicing dentistry and practicing medicine. It's that you're doing little precise things on humans
yeah.
where every single thing is different. So you're going to have things where sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't like how that turned out. So
Yeah, it's interesting because I work with a lot of people too in the career I've been in banking, and a lot of times I'll be in the middle of an application or talking to someone about a loan or options, and you say things like, "Oh, whoops, didn't mean to do that," and I always tell them, "Oh, good thing I'm not a surgeon. You don't want to hear your surgeon saying that."
yeah, sure.
But no, I appreciate all the time that you've spent with us. I mean, generally, if we step back from dentistry a little bit and talk about, even any general life skills or the way that you've dealt with difficulty through your life or things like that, are there any parting words of advice you'd give to someone much younger?
Oh, I think it would be to just try things and do things, and then when things work out, just to not beat yourself up over it. I think um, that this life is about trying new things and trying things, and there's going to be times when you have things not work out perfectly, and that's okay. And just
Mhm.
course correct, recognize that it's not the end of the world, that it'll be fine. I think as long as you're always, your goal is to try your best, and you're curious, and you're willing to show people grace and forgiveness, that you owe the same to yourself. That if things are, don't turn out right, just to get over it, just to, realize that's the way it works. Let's get up and keep going. So
Right, right. Not a lot of choices. But, it's interesting. I was talking to a CPA a few days ago, and he was saying that he had a client that came in that had just been served by the IRS. He was being audited. And he said this client was so upset. He said he felt like he could see and feel this guy's agony almost, that it was borderline suicidal. And he said by the time, he got to this guy, had a long conversation, he left his office feeling like, 1,000 pounds lighter. It's not the end of the world. There's some things you're going to have to disclose to the IRS. You
Mhm.
might have some penalties and interest, but it's not, yeah, life goes on. We learn from our mistakes, and sometimes we learn more from mistakes than when things go well. So,
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
you
yeah. I
know,
think that's good wisdom. Is that if everything just I was always going the way you sort of hope it is, then sometimes you protect yourself from the opportunity to learn. So
right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Campbell.
uh, that's yeah. John is great.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate your
Yeah,
time and you're sharing your career with us.
yeah. You betcha. My pleasure. So.
Thanks.